participants, panelists, and our invited guests constituting the audience. I am Professor Tunji Olaokwa, retired Federal Permanent Secretary and Directing Staff at the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies in Kuru. And with me to co-moderate this event is a broadcast journalist and media consultant, Eugenia Abo. It is our utmost pleasure and immense honor to welcome everyone to this webinar event. Today's event is a culmination of series of Nigeria Leadership Initiative, NLI, events and multi-pronged stakeholders engagements and series of seminars it had since 2006.
Your Excellencies, participants and invited guests, let me join my co-moderator in welcoming you all to this well thought out webinar by the Nigeria Leadership Initiative. We're joined today by His Excellency, the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, His Excellency, the Senate President, Dr. Ahmad Lawan, His Excellency, former Head of State, General Yakubu Gowon, and His Excellency, Dr. Christopher Kolade. We also have in our midst visionary and founder of the NLI, Dr. Olusegun Aganga, and the tireless Malam Bashir Yusuf Ibrahim, Chairman Organizing Committee of this NLI webinar series. Our panelists today include the irrepressible Chairman, First Bank Nigeria, Mrs. Ibukun Awoshika, respected academic and scholar, Professor Adebanwi, Country Director at Development Alternative Incorporated, DAI, Dr. Joe Abba, Communication Expert, Mariam Laushi, Chairman, Channels Television, Mr. John Momo. It's time now to invite the Chairman Organizing Committee, Malam Bashir, to deliver his welcome address. Malam Bashir Yusuf Ibrahim.
It is my singular honor and privilege to, on behalf of NLI and members of the Organizing Committee, welcome you all to the first in the series of webinars, the purpose of which is to spark a national conversation and build national consensus around a set of national values and to drive a process that will lead to taking concrete action. It is not by coincidence that NLI is leading on this issue. We have in the last 14 years conducted a series of seminars on values-based leadership involving highly accomplished Nigerians in both the private and public sectors, including members of state and federal executive councils, and have seen the value of these seminars in the public and personal conduct of those who benefited. At NLI, we consider the issue of values as our most important calling. Once again, I welcome your excellencies, panelists, and distinguished audience to this important occasion. Thank you very much.
We go swiftly now to invite a man who is a boardroom titan, an academic, a broadcaster, who is also a well-loved diplomat, Nigeria's former High Commissioner to Britain, and NLI patron, Dr. Christopher Kolade.
Thank you very much for inviting me. There's no question that a national dialogue on our national values system is long overdue. And I am delighted that NLI has taken the initiative to organize this seminar, this webinar. Now, history shows us that the most successful companies or countries in the world are built on a set of identifiable core values, which then become the foundation on which the nation or institution itself is built. So we cannot achieve sustainable economic growth and development unless we build on a solid foundation and develop people who are community spirited in our country and who consistently live our agreed national values. So establishing the right values is an investment that we make in our greatest asset, and that is our people. I recall that a few years ago, NLI organized a national essay competition requiring people to identify the values on which our nation should be built and how those values should be embedded in our society. Now, the response was very encouraging. About 80% of those who participated in an essay competition were between the ages of 21 and 35 years. And they identified many values, the top 10 of which were integrity, industry, compassion, justice and equity, tolerance, patriotism, discipline, family values, contentment, and spirituality. I believe those values identified by Nigerians in that essay could actually be the beginning of our efforts to rebuild the national values system. So on this note, I want to commend and congratulate the federal government for the recently approved National Ethics and Integrity Policy. It's a good first step in the right direction, but we need to do a lot more to get us to the desired goal. So let us all work together to rebuild a national values system which every Nigerian will buy into. NLI is ready and willing to work with the government, the National Assembly, and all other willing organizations to rebuild our values system. So I thank you all once again for joining us in this important national dialogue. I look forward to a very productive day. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. We appreciate your comments that you have made with candor. It is time now for us to invite our next speaker, His Excellency General Yakubu Gowon.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I am delighted to be invited to this webinar by Nigeria Leadership Initiative, NLI. I wish to commend your organization's mission statement, which says to create a growing global network of credible, accomplished, community-spirited Nigerian leaders committed to taking responsibility for driving positive change in Nigeria and Nigerian communities. It is therefore not surprising that you have taken the lead in the charting the course of national rebirth through your advocacy programs, including this webinar. History is replete with societies and nations that succeeded on account of their shared common values, and those that floundered due to the lack of such values. The most profound example of an institutionalized, well-grounded value system is the military profession. We are trained on the critical value-based themes of discipline, loyalty, patriotism, commitment, seeking the common good, justice, and equity, defending the territorial integrity of our country without any prejudice whatsoever on the basis of tribe, social status, or belief. In my view, any progress made by a nation through the exercise of political power without a set of guiding principles, values, system is unsustainable Therefore, to link all the diverse facets of our life as a country, tongue, creed, and social standing, we need to have a value system that is shared by every component of society. Hence, the transformation of our nation must begin from the home. We need, to, as a society, return to the age-long ethos of our forebears who trained and were exemplary role models to people of our generation. A nation that does not reward hard work, integrity, patriotism, honesty, etc., is bound to fail. Nigerians should be defined by these values, just as most people, especially the British, associate fairness with the British. So we should do so with Nigeria. Thank you all for listening and a successful meeting. Thank you.
Your Excellency, we want to thank you so very much for those words that would be etched in our memory for a very long time to come. It is my singular honor and pleasure to invite our amiable and cerebral Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Professor Yemi Osinbajo.
Thank you very much. Honored guests, ladies and gentlemen. The NLI, and especially its visionary, Sheikh Mwaganga, deserves commendation for providing the opportunity for this conversation on rebuilding our national value system. The timing is fortuitous. First, recently, the President launched the National Ethics and Integrity Policy. And the core values of this policy are human dignity, participation, patriotism, personal responsibility, integrity, national unity, and professionalism. The policy is founded on Section 23 of the Constitution, which provides that the national ethics shall be discipline, integrity, dignity of labor, social justice, religious tolerance, and patriotism. Secondly, this conversation comes on the 60th anniversary of our nationhood. I think that this is particularly fortuitous because perhaps the most notable activity marking our Diamond Jubilee has been the debates in various fora on whether the journey so far can by any measure be described as successful. Most of the reflections have sought to answer the question by some rough and ready measurement of our current level of development, given the opportunities, the potentials that our country possesses. And also how our behavior, the behavior of our political and business elite, our religious elite, our politics, policy decisions have shaped those outcomes. The point to be noted is that practically all discussions on our national odyssey so far center around development. And for good reason. This is by far the most important dynamic in measuring individual or communal success. This is why any discussion on values is only really useful if it is based on values as praxis, that is tied to the question of how such values will influence or impact the development of society, or in our case, the development of our nation. This point is particularly important. Shaping our discussion on values as a fundament of development is also important because it helps to focus the individual and communal mind on survival, especially economic survival, which is dear to the heart of all. And by this, I mean that if we shape our discussions around our value system, around what is most dear to the hearts of most of us, which is our economic survival, is very helpful because it directs everybody's mind to how it is that our value systems will promote us, will promote our economic survival as individuals and as a collective eventually, and also how to promote our social development, first as individuals and then as a collective. Any other paradigm will almost invariably fall in the mind and in our minds into the category of the exhortatory, of the moral preachments. I just wish to go back to those three, the relevance of the value system. So the first is that it must engender national unity, and this is very important. The second point, and you know, by national unity, we'll go to several. We'll talk about several of the issues around national unity. The second point is that it must. The second point is that there must be a way by which our value system. There must be a way by which our value system helps to focus our minds on a shared vision. It must provide a causal connection with our economic development. In other words, we must be able to say that this set of values conduces to economic development in a particular way. And it must also be one that is capable of showing us and showing the individual that a happy society, a community that is happy, a community of people that are prepared to live together and work together is possible on account of this value system. So for purposes of national unity, for example, we must accept that unity and peace are important outcomes, but the condition predicate for both unity and peace is justice, both legal and social justice. These are important connections. They're practical, ways, I think, of ensuring that we're able to rebuild our national value systems and ensure that the value systems endure and that the value systems make sense for economic development. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you.
The Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria has spoken from the heart. I would quickly like at this point to bring on our panelists, and they would be speaking with my co-moderator, Professor Tunji Olaopa.
Your Excellencies, the Vice President, Your Excellency General Yakubu Gowon, Your Excellency Dr. Christopher Kolade, and thank you for those incredibly inspiring words. With those firm statements of commitment from our icons, our special guests, NLI as enlisted critical champions that will take the journey of rebuilding our national values system further to enable a more inclusive and broader conversation around the shared value. And so Nigerians will begin to inculcate them through numerous programs of engagements from now going forward. And I invite our distinguished panelists to kickstart this panel conversation. So I most respectfully invite the Senate President, Senator Dr. Ahmed Lawan, to make his initial statement.
Thank you very much, Professor Tunji. This is a very important period for us, having been independent for 60 years, and therefore we are matured enough by age to be old enough to have established certain core values that I may describe as national values, that regardless of where someone comes from, regardless of any affiliation that may be different from others, these core values should be our guiding and beacon of how we conduct ourselves, either as leaders or as citizens. Let me say that the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria has made provisions for the kind of a society that we need to be, the kind of leadership that we have to have, the kind of followership that we need to have. While the society believes in certain things in different ways because we are multi-ethnic, very, very diverse, there should be, and I think we had, and we can revive such national core values that will continue to guide us at the family level, at the community level, at the society level, and at the national level, even though we may have some that could be unique to certain people or certain areas of the country. But those that are fundamental, those that are identified as core to all of us in the nation should be cherished, should be sustained. Let me say that the Vice President mentioned how do we bring back those lost core values. Teaching is one, but I believe that the family has to play that role that it played before. The communities would have to play the roles they played before. As I'm just 61, 1 year older than the Federal Republic of Nigeria at independence. But I recall that when I was growing up as a kid, the discipline I received was not only from my family, but from the community at large. And this is supposed to be sustained because the final product of the person is a reflection of the family, is a reflection of the community, and of course, the reflection of the country that that person belongs. When we teach in our schools, we should have curricula that will continuously be modified, redesigned, redefined to meet the challenges that we face. Today, because of the availability of the internet, keeping to core values, teaching them and continuously exemplifying and playing them out requires more efforts because the challenges are numerous. There will be so many products, so many information, so many cultures from other parts of the country, other communities that may not be necessarily in conformity with the kind of cultures or values that we cherish in this country. I believe that our founding fathers have done so much work to ensure that Nigeria was established on a very sound national core values. In fact, let me quote the famous statement of Samad Bello Sadona of Sokoto, the Premier of Northern Region, when he said, let us understand our differences, when one of our leaders said we should forget our differences. These differences are not meant to tear us apart. These differences are differences that are meant to be understood. They are meant to be respected. So I believe that the leadership at all levels here at the national, state, local governments, which are formal leadership, and the informal leadership should continue to play those roles that are expected of leaders, lead their lives in office by example. And of course, the followership will find it easier, much, much easier to continue to toe the line, be respecters of law, and of course, the society and our country can do better. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, the Senate President. I'd like to invite respected Mrs. Ibukun Awoshika to make a statement.
Good afternoon, Your Excellencies. Well, the task for today is, it's a matter we must resolve. Let me put it that way. It's a matter that it's as important as us finding the financial resources to deal with our critical infrastructure. Because without solving our social infrastructure based on our value system, how we think and how we approach issues, we will not, that in itself will undermine the impact and the effect of what our physical infrastructure is meant to add to our system. Structure for interacting with ourselves, our ability to trust one another, our understanding of the impact of one action, of our actions upon the rest of society, our understanding of our commitment to teaching our children the right thing in the interest of the overall society, our understanding of the impact of the actions of each individual citizen on the rest of the citizens of the country, and the complexity that our broken value system brings into the marketplace in terms of how we interact with ourselves socially, economically, and otherwise cannot be undermined. And it deals with the entire infrastructure of our society. So it's a question we must find answers to. And we had it right before. A season came and we allowed things to fall apart. But without any doubt, we all have clarity around the fact that it's impossible for us to move forward without solving this problem. So it's if we can reach that consensus of enlightened self-interest, understanding that we all benefit if we create a better social code that allows us to create a better society, which will have impact in every other area of our lives. It affects the healthcare infrastructure, because if I'm worried about buying fake drug, about all the different things related to that because of trust, mistrust, and greed, and all of those, then we have a problem. If I don't feel a sense of security because I cannot trust the security infrastructure based on corruption and all of those factors, then I have a challenge. If the rule of law cannot find effective place to play its role within the society, then it affects our economic and social interactions with one another. If the educational infrastructure cannot deliver the value it should to the citizens of our country so that we can create the right human capital for our economic development because of all of the issues of trust, value systems, and all of those things, then corruption, then we have a challenge. So it's not, it's an all-encompassing issue, and we have the capacity to rebuild, we have the capacity to reset, we have the capacity to create actions and consequences, and we have the capacity to reteach our children, not just by saying it, but by the things that we do. So it's a national conversation, but I hope that beyond just conversing, that we would take effective critical actions, which would be embedded in policies that are made by the government. But beyond that, it has to be a social policy that we all commit to, because it doesn't matter what laws are made. It's how we ourselves as citizens commit to the process of rebuilding our society and then teaching it from our homes, through our children, through our schools, and executing it through all the systems that we set up. That's what will lead to our ability to be able to change the narrative so we can have a better society where we can all express ourselves without fear. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this point, I'd like to invite Professor Wale Adebanwe.
Thank you very much. What I want to discuss quickly is just what I see as a very dynamic process of rebuilding our national value system. First, I think this will involve understanding the relationship between the leaders and the followers. Basically, for the leaders and the followers to raise one another to higher levels. I think that's the first step. And then we need to achieve a congruence, between the higher purposes of the leaders and the higher purposes of the followers. And I will give specific examples as we as we go along. Next is that it's important for that congruence that is achieved between the leaders and the followers to then transform both the leadership and the following. So in achieving that congruence, the congruence must be transforming. It must be transformative. But to be able to achieve this, I think it's important to understand that there is a foundation to the relationship between leaders and followers and the transformation that will come out of that relationship when they raise themselves to a higher level. And what is that? I think it is political culture. Some people would just call it culture, but I would want to describe it in this context as political culture. Now, in every political culture, in every country all over the world, you have the good and the bad. What we need to do is to emphasize and promote the good and de-emphasize, and also, if it is possible where we can, minimize the bad. For instance, one of the greatest qualities that we have, and I think this is one of the finest things about us as Nigerians, is that we are a freedom-loving people. And this is evident in every culture in Nigeria. And I always boast everywhere I go in the world that if you come to Nigeria under even the worst dictatorship, and you see what people write in newspapers, you will think this is the freest country in the world. So it means that even under the worst conditions, we're people who love freedom, and we take all the risks in the world to affirm and to show to everyone that we are a freedom-loving people. Another thing, that we need to emphasize, for instance, we're also a very confident people. Everywhere in the world you go, you can almost pick out a Nigerian. In fact, there is a joke, in South Africa that a friend told me that he went to some office and was moving around. Somebody came up to me and said, "Are you a Nigerian?" I said, "Yes." "Why are you asking?" He said, "Yeah, it is only you guys who walk around as if you own everywhere." So that's, something about us. We have a lot of confidence. That's something to emphasize in every culture in Nigeria. So we have some of these elements. So just a few examples about things that we need to emphasize and promote while we de-emphasize some of the things that are bad in our political culture. So in the context of all of this, I think what is important, therefore, in emphasizing the good and de-emphasizing the bad, in promoting the good, is to ensure that all of the good are then geared towards ensuring human development. And I talk about human development, not just development in a vacuum, but human development because every effort has to be geared towards ensuring that we actually ensure the development of our people. Finally, for this round, when we have done all of this, I think we must then ensure, the leadership must ensure that we mobilize all the resources that are available in the country. And I think Nigeria's human resources, of course, are far greater than our natural resources. I mean, if Nigeria has no oil, or any other natural resource, if we develop our human resources, that would be sufficient for us to create one of the greatest countries in the world. And I think what we then need is the leadership to mobilize all of these creative energies of our people to ensure that the best is able to thrive in Nigeria. As I said, I would provide some other examples of some of the framework that I just laid out now. But one thing before I stop, in the different culture, and I think it was the Senate president that mentioned this in terms of our diversity. In the different cultures, you can see different kinds of elements of some of the things I mentioned. For instance, I won't pronounce this very well. Among the Hausa, you have this idea of mutume kaki, which is the concept of a good man. Among the Yoruba, you have the idea of omoluabi, which is also about a good person. So all of these elements already exist in different cultures in Nigeria. What we need, of course, is to harness all of these, create a leadership that there is some synergy between the leadership and the following, and to collectively raise the level of our aspirations together and ensure that the right kind of people are in the leadership who have the capacity to be able to mobilize the creative energies of Nigerians. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Adebanwe. At this point, I'd like to invite the voice of the youth here and Ms. Miriam Laushi to make a statement.
I'm very honored to be here amongst you all. On the matter of our values, rebuilding our values as young people, I think most importantly, I want to highlight a salient point from the address of His Excellency, the Vice President, about a sense of belonging. Young Nigerians need to have an identity, something that unites us, that is not our religion or our tribe or our region. This is something that is very important and can help people focus on what they need to focus on. Burkina Faso actually means the land of the incorruptible people. Nigerian youth need to have an identity as such that makes us feel we are part of something as Nigerians, that makes us feel we are included in everything that Nigeria revolves around. So the largest demographic in Nigeria in terms of our population is the young, up to age 35. According to some of our policies, it's up to age 35, from 18 to 35, some say 16 or even younger. And it's really important to harness the energies and the innovations and just the sheer number of young Nigerians in using them to shape the values of Nigeria in the coming generations, and even to the children that are just growing up now that haven't even reached adolescence or young adulthood. It's really important for Nigerians to understand that our values are beyond where we are from and what we are called by. There are many strengths. Many people talk about how Nigerian youth are involved in a lot of illegal activity or activity on social media that is not encouraging. But these energies need to be harnessed towards a positive objective. And so this is my humble submission when it comes to the Nigerian youth, and also the fact that women, young women, have a lot to offer and it's not being used, because even in this generation, there is a huge expectation of women to take on traditional roles. And if we want a country that will have our values cut across and benchmarked in every industry, in every aspect of community down to the grassroots, then young women are a very important component in the discussion. And especially when we refer to young people, there's a sense to exclude young women as well as people living with disabilities. And so once the energies and the values and the principles of also marginalized groups are used, this would help a lot. Another issue, I believe, is the inequality gap in terms of income and the economy as well. These are issues that severely affect young people and it doesn't make it so easy to hold on to values and principles when there are so many issues that limit young people in general. So I think those are the areas that for me, I would like to concentrate on, just to harness the best out of young people and make sure that our voices and our actions are included in building the value system of Nigeria.
Thank you very much, Miriam. It is my pleasure to invite a senior fellow of NLI and Mr. John Momo.
Thank you very much indeed. I think there's need for us to stress the fact that there should be a national value statement by our motto encapsulates this indeed, when it talks about unity and faith, peace and progress. But this then should make us think, well, how we can consciousness of the Nigerian public, both the young and the old. The issues have been mentioned, quite a number of the value systems that we should imbibe in the society of mentioned. Integrity, compassion, respect, diversity, and collaborate with each other. All this change, indeed, is the media, because in nation building, it's so critical that the media is the one that molds public opinion and shapes the perspective that is right for the nation to follow. We need to fight stereotypes in our country. That's one of the roles that the media plays very well. I'm one of those who were privileged to study civic duties in school. The Senate president was saying he was 61, and he's 61, and that he was also privileged to have gone through such training. There's need for us to generate awareness, more awareness about what's right and what is wrong. What are the obligations of the Nigerian citizens to the states? But all this is very important if we have a society that is very peaceful. Because right now we're going through somewhat a near crisis situation where, you know, the kidnappers are on the prowl, even though the government is trying to do its role in trying to bring about peace and security. People are alienated. The government must make sure that they're brought back. There has to be an alarm that should be sounded to let people know that we're here for you, we mean well for you, and we have that leadership that can take the reins and show the way, the path in the president that we have today. So it's just for us to follow that a strategic role that must be played by all and sundry in making sure that all this come about. So it's the critical role of the media also is very important. We should avoid sensationalization of news because this happens all the time. We should make sure that people are not radicalized by using the media or social media. The almighty fake news should be avoided. So I'd like to thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. John Momo. At this point, I'd like to invite Public Service Reformer, Dr. Joe Abba, to make a statement.
Thank you. I want to tell you the story of Ibrahim and Blessing. You may not know that Ibrahim is the most common name in Nigeria. Ibrahim's father is a career politician who has never done any real work in his life. When it was time for Ibrahim to write his WAEC and his JAMB exams, his father paid someone to write them for him. At university, Ibrahim quickly joined a cult, and by the time he was at 200 level, he was already an accomplished rapist. Ibrahim never read for one day. He relied on paying lecturers for marks, a practice known as sorting, and intimidating those that initially refused to be sorted. Lecturers would often go on strike to complain about their poor pay and the poor facilities they have to work with. Every strike provides lecturers an opportunity to make money doing other things and still get paid by government instead of just relying on sorting and selling stale handouts. When the strike goes on for too long, parents and students start to agitate. Government will make the lecturers promises that he knew he could not keep just to get them to call off the strike. Ministers of labor traditionally have no training in conducting negotiations. As far as each minister is concerned, they will say, I just need to tell them any lie they want to hear to get them to call off the strike. The next minister can deal with the problem in 5 years' time. At university, Ibrahim fell in love with Blessing, a student from another university. Blessing lost her mother when she was just 2 years old. Her mother was shot by a policeman from SARS, the Special Anti-Robbery Squad, whom she refused to give a 20 naira bribe. The hospital wasn't compassionate when she was brought in injured. They insisted on a police report and on payment. And while waiting for that, Blessing's mom bled to death. At the beginning of each semester, Blessing's father, a poorly paid civil servant, will say he has no money to give her and he expects her to do what other girls her age do to survive. Blessing soon became an Abuja big girl and was dating several men that were old enough to be her father. The dean of her faculty had a reputation for sexually harassing young girls, but was particularly obsessed with Blessing. Blessing never had to study. and wasn't even in school most of the time, but had to beg the dean not to give her a first-class degree as she was worried about having to defend it later in life. When Ibrahim graduated, his dad made sure that he was posted to a juicy parastatal for NYSC and that they retained him afterwards. Things were going well for Ibrahim, but his relationship with Blessing broke up after a very bitter quarrel. You see, Blessing didn't realize that her newest sugar daddy was actually Ibrahim's dad. When Ibrahim found out, he developed a deep hatred for people from Blessing's part of the country. He threatened to kill her, and she had to emigrate to Canada through one of her helpers. Her dad died from medical negligence 2 years after retiring, without a house to his name anywhere in Nigeria or abroad. Blessing blames Nigeria for everything. She now hates the country with a passion and vows never to return. Although Ibrahim was not terribly smart, he had a very caustic tongue and a fearsome reputation on social media for his ability to rain abuse and curses on anybody, no matter their age. Very soon, he was made a special assistant on new media to a minister, and after a few years was appointed the head of a government agency with a clear target for making cash returns to those that facilitated his appointment. And so the question for us is, what kind of Nigerian do we expect Ibrahim to be? Can we do anything with his younger brother, Musa? What about Blessing? Can we do anything with her or with our younger sister, Jennifer? What can we do differently as individuals? What can we do differently as parents? Particularly as the problems of Ibrahim and Blessing, to my mind, started from home. What do we do as teachers, as religious leaders, as government? I believe that the answer to these questions is what we are here today to discuss. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Joaba. I'd like to thank everyone, the panelists. It's been a robust set of information. With this said, I'd like to invite the founder and the man whose vision brought us here, Dr. Olusegun Aganga, to make concluding remarks.
NLI is a non-political, non-profit organization with presence in Nigeria and the United Kingdom. So far, it has a network of about 400 highly accomplished and credible Nigerians based in Nigeria, United Kingdom, Europe, United States of America, Asia, South Africa, and Kenya. In the past, we have been sponsored by the World Bank to run similar seminars for leaders in Rwanda. And in 2006, April, we ran a seminar working with the Aspen Institute in Colorado for President Olusegun Obasanjo and his cabinet. Our focus is on values-based leadership and national development. On behalf of the Nigerian Leadership Initiative, I would like to express my profound gratitude to Your Excellency, the Vice President, Professor Yemi Oshibajo, SANGCON. I am proud to say that His Excellency, the Vice President, is a senior fellow of the Nigerian Leadership Initiative, having attended the seminar in 2007 in Hertfordshire, here in the United Kingdom. Our special thanks go to Your Excellency, former Head of State, General Yakubu Gowon, GCFR. Your Excellency, the Senate President, Senator Dr. Ahmed Ibrahim Lawal, CON. Your Excellency, Dr. Christopher Kolade, CON, Patron Nigerian Leadership Initiative. I must say that Dr. Kolade has been with us since NLI was established in 2006. He was the first person I consulted when I decided to set up NLI in London. And he attended and hosted the first seminar in 2006 when he was the High Commissioner in London. Technically, having attended the seminar, spent 4 or 5 days with us in Hertfordshire, he is also a senior fellow of NLI. We're indeed grateful to you, Your Excellency, Dr. Christopher Kolade. I also want to recognize and thank our distinguished panelists, the co-moderators, and a special audience. I cannot thank members of the organizing committee led by Malam Bashir Yusuf Ibrahim enough. Other members of the committee include Dr. Titi Banjoko Oshiemi, a senior fellow based in the United Kingdom, Tajuddin Ahmed, Hawa Magoro, Yewande Adewusi, Hawa Yabani, Tunde Ajia, and Luke Onofiok. 3 of these fellows are based in the United Kingdom. For us at NLI, this webinar is the beginning of a process that will hopefully lead to a desired outcome, a national value system that every Nigerian is committed to and that applies to all, no exception. That is the goal. Unless we make our value system the foundation on which we build our nation, it will be difficult, if not impossible, to achieve our true potential as a nation. That is how important it is. I commend and congratulate the federal government, and especially the ICPC, the National Orientation Agency, and the Office of the Secretary to the Government for the new National Ethics and Integrity Policy. This is a big first step in the right direction. Unfortunately, policy alone will not get us there. Now it is about the details. It's about implementation and the quality of implementation. It's about enforcement. It's about sustainability, or what some may call continuity, because it takes time to embed this in the culture of the society. These are the areas that we'll be focusing on in our subsequent seminars. This is where we all have a duty and a responsibility to play our role as stakeholders, as Nigerians. We, NLI, ask you to join us and become custodians of these values, advocates and appambassadors for the task of rebuilding an effective national value system that will apply to all, no exception. From the common man to our leaders, from the floor to the boardrooms. As we say in NLI, it is time for all of us to move from thought to action. It is time to move from success to significance. Accordingly, it is my pleasure to announce the launch of the NLI Values Essay Competition. The topic is, how should the values identified in the new National Ethics and Integrity Policy be fully implemented? How do we ensure sustainability at all levels and buy-in by all Nigerians? What role should the citizens play? In the next few days, we will be publishing details about the essay competition. Once again, Your Excellencies, I thank Your Excellencies, the panelists, our co-moderators, Mrs. Eugenia Abu, and Professor Olakpa, who is also an NLI Senior Fellow, our distinguished audience, and the Nigerian leadership Initiative Webinar Organizing Committee. God bless you and have a happy 60th anniversary. Thank you.
Why I congratulate NLI for this giant stride. I invite my colleague as we draw the curtain on this webinar. Eugenia.
Thank you very much, Professor Olaokpa. Dr. Aganga has spoken well, as usual, leading NLI to a great destination with all those who have joined us today and those who are going to interface with NLI to push forward these values which we are talking about. Your Excellency, General Yakubu Gowon, Your Excellency, Dr. Christopher Kolade, we cannot thank you enough for staying through with us up to the very end. We want to thank all our invited guests who have made the time to remain with us this day where we discuss Nigeria, talk Nigeria, and seek a way forward. Everything and all the questions that have been sent to us and comments would be put together, shaken together, and make whole for how we make Nigeria whole. It has been a pleasure to serve. My name is Eugenia Abu. Back to you, Professor Olaokpa. Good afternoon. Thank you, Eugenia. My name, once again, is Professor Tunji Olaokpa. It's been a distinct pleasure for me to co-moderate this webinar. Thank you immensely, all participants and as invited guests, Our Excellency, for making it a day with NLI, and God bless you all.